Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and tonight I'm going to be reviewing to you New Super Mario Bros. For the DS. This footage is from the Wii U Virtual Console version, and I'm just going to say right before I even start the official review that that's definitely the version I would recommend getting it on at the time being. Not only does it let you save anywhere, which fixes the super annoying save system that the New Super Mario Bros. Series has yet to fix over 6 years later, and it also lets you view the game's original manual, provided that you hold the gamepad sideways for some strange reason. Also, it lets you enjoy this crisp, clutter-free action on the TV while keeping most of the statistics on the gamepad, instead of making it a dual-screen experience. Also, it's only $10 if you get it on the Virtual Console, probably cheaper now that the Wii U is kind of in its down days, but at least it's still there as of the time of this recording. So, looking at this by 2018 standards, you're probably thinking, "Aw man, this game is so generic and boring. Why do we get yet another Mario game?" Well, yeah, that's what I would probably say if I played this in 2018 with the oversaturation of side-scrolling Marios. But back in 2006, that was the furthest thing from our mind. When this came out, this was the first brand new side-scrolling Mario to hit a Nintendo platform since Super Mario Land 2 on the Game Boy. So that was a long wait. For me personally, the last side-scrolling Mario game I had played before this was Super Mario World. And while it may not have had all the sophisticated power-ups, interconnected world map of those games, it brought an identity of its own, and that's 2.5D graphics. Basically, Mario and the enemies are 3D models, but they play like an old-school Mario game. I remember fondly the commercials that would play in late 2006 advertising this game, where it would start out with footage of retro 8-bit Mario in Super Mario Bros. Who would then get a mushroom, and then the game's graphics would suddenly morph into these, and at the time, that was mind-blowing. These were some of the most impressive graphics to ever hit the DS when this came out. And we were like, whoa, this game looks like Super Mario 64, played sideways. And back then, we didn't know handhelds were capable of that kind of thing. We knew that they could remake Super Mario 64, but make a side-scrolling Mario game from the ground up? That was seriously impressive. So, what about this game isn't impressive? Well, for starters, it has a really obnoxious save system. Most DS games, and handheld games in general, have this unspoken philosophy that you should be able to have a pick-up-and-play accessibility. Well, Nintendo hadn't quite mastered that rule in this game, or in this era, something or another, because the way the game works is that before you beat the game, after which you gain the ability to save whenever you want, you have to either beat a castle or a tower, or pay 5 star coins at a star coin sign on the world map. So that meant, say if you had to get through 4 levels to get to a tower, and you got a game over on level 3 out of 4, you'd have to play through all 3 of those levels all over again to get to level 4. This was frustrating because you have the ability to save anytime after you beat the game. Why is that not available from the beginning? Is it because Nintendo wanted to artificially challenge the game or make it more like how it was back in the Nintendo Entertainment System days? If so, they should have made it an option, just like there's a cheat code to play this game with the game making it so that you can't scroll left. An option, not a requirement. Nintendo shouldn't punish players that want the ease of portable play just because they want to emulate the good times. I mean, we know that Nintendo showed restraint in other areas. For example, Mario can't dash up walls like he could in Super Mario World. You don't have Yoshi, you don't have the Tanuki suit, you don't have the charged up running meter from Super Mario Bros. 3, or the ability to grab object like Super Mario Bros. 2. This was mostly a let's take the basics of what made the Super Mario Bros. Series fun and add in 2.5D graphics and some of the maneuvers that Mario used in Super Mario 64, like the wall jump and the ground pound. New Super Mario Bros.' other big problem, which isn't really big, it's more of just a nitpick if you're a major Mario platforming fan, and it's very, very easy. This game, even in the 8th world, it's pretty hard to die, 1-ups are easy to find, and usually you can get through most of the levels on the first try. And if you're not looking for the star coins, that just makes the game even easier, because while the game pretends that it has 8 worlds, there's really only 6 that are mandatory. The other 2 are hidden worlds that you can get if you beat certain bosses as Mini Mario, and you can just ignore them if you want. So the game is actually shorter than Super Mario Bros., if you can believe that. Now, collecting star coins has its benefits. I mean, for one, if you're playing on the original DS version, you pretty much need them to save outside of a castle or a tower, and you can also use them to unlock new backgrounds for the touch screen instead of just looking at plain old white. The touch screen can be used to store items. It also has a progress meter that shows how far you are into the level, except when you're in a ghost house. Then they just want to show the ghost. And it also shows stuff like statistics that you wouldn't want cluttering up your main screen. So yeah, the dual screen usage in this game is minimal, but it didn't really have to push the DS horsepower. If this game had been released on the Game Boy Advance, people would have loved it, and they wouldn't have cared that the game had to shoehorn in DS-specific features. Speaking of too easy, another big problem this game has, which is cool if you're a newcomer, but terrible if you're a veteran, is that the boss battles are even easier than the levels themselves. Normally, bosses are supposed to give you this endgame-like challenge of saying, you've surmounted the final obstacle, now you can proceed. But yet, every single boss in the game can either be defeated with enough fireballs from a fire flower, or from jumping on them with a Mega Mushroom, which defeats them in one hit. Eventually, you gain the ability to have unlimited Mega Mushrooms, and if you do that, even the final battle can be over in a matter of seconds. What happened to the large, menacing Bowser from Super Mario 64? The one that grimaced so much in Super Mario World that I started hating him just for existing. That's the kind of stuff that we as Mario fans want. And for the newcomers, maybe they're happy. I'm not. Thankfully, you can ignore those if you want, as it's really nice to have options, especially if you play as Mini Mario, which causes the bosses to become actually pretty hard, because Mario dies in one hit when he's miniaturized. So speaking of which, let's go into the power-ups. Classic power-ups, there's only 3. The Mushroom, the Fire Flower, and the Superstar, which all work as they've always done. As for new power-ups, we've got the Mini Mushroom, as you're seeing right now, which lets Mario run across water, jump higher, and bounce off of enemy's head on the downside of getting hit once and he dies. As for the Mega Mushroom, it does the complete opposite, filling Mario to screen-filling size so that he can destroy anything in his path, kill any boss in one hit, and even get a ton of one-up mushrooms depending on how much destruction he does. Yeah, who knew that Mario was ripping off the Incredible Hulk back in 2006? In addition to that, the last new power-up that's introduced is the blue shell. No, not the spiny shell from Mario Kart. The blue shell, the one without spikes on it, that lets Mario basically zoom around like a Koopa Troopa would, and he can also use it to swim easier underwater. This was a fairly underwhelming power-up, and as you probably know, it never came back for a subsequent Mario game, which is kind of another problem with the subsequent new Super Mario Bros. Series, is that this iteration introduced some really cool features that never quite made the return. For all the repetition that the new Super Mario Bros. Series does, New Super Mario Bros. Had some really amazing sound effects and music. While they may sound bland today, they sound really fresh when you compare them to the generic tunes that are recycled over and over and over again in every subsequent side-scrolling Mario since then, even Super Mario Maker. The underwater theme, for example, is entirely new, and it's so beautiful and mesmerizing and fitting to the atmosphere that I wonder why Nintendo hasn't remade that song. In fact, the only new song from this game that's been remade at all, besides the main theme, is the castle theme, or the tower theme, one or the other. And that's only because there was a Bowser's Castle Stadium in Mario Super Sluggers, and they didn't want to compose an all-new song, so they remixed a song from this instead. Another strange omission is that this game has touchscreen, dual screen, you name it, DS-centric minigames, because, what is a DS game without minigames back in the early 2000s? Admittedly, most of them were recycled from Super Mario 64 DS, and I don't blame them. That wasn't supposed to be the main focus of the game. These minigames were a lot of fun and took advantage of the DS's capabilities in unique ways. And it might have been Nintendo's way of saying, okay, well, we couldn't exactly make this game fit the DS's special features to a T, so why don't we just add in the minigames so that people can actually say, oh, well, this is a game that couldn't have been done on the Game Boy Advance. Okay, I'll buy that for now. I mean, it gives the game more content than it does the other new Super Mario Bros. Games, and I'm fine with that, seeing as how this game is really easy. It adds a lot of multiplayer value, and it gives an excuse for more than 2 players to play at a time. Speaking of which, when this game first was revealed at E3 2005, there was a trailer showcasing Mario and Luigi platforming together. Unfortunately, that idea would have to wait until New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but if you play this game on the original DS, you do have the option of playing a battle mode of sorts, where you play on pre-selected courses. Yes, Mario Kart Take a Lesson. And you'd have to try to steal the big star from your other brother, as player 1 would play as Mario and the other would play as Luigi. Unfortunately, this feature was removed from the Wii U version, because, well, emulation problems, but honestly it wasn't missed very much. I would much prefer the insane chaos of New Super Mario Bros. Wii over that any time. Now, if you're looking to get into the New Super Mario Bros. Series and are wondering where to start, this option is definitely worth a buy. Like I said at the start of the review, I would recommend the Wii U version simply because it fixes the save issue and lets you play it on the big screen, but also because this game was basically the Super Mario Odyssey of its time. The new formula hadn't gone stale yet, even if the name was doomed to be outdated as soon as we learned that that's what it would really be called. And it may seem basic, but it has the fundamental core Mario platforming experience that everyone wants. Plus, it's the only New Super Mario Bros. Game to have mini-games, which add to its replay value. So with that, this game is also pretty cheap, so pricing shouldn't be an option, and it's also easy enough that if you have a little kid and are hoping to get them into Mario, this is a phenomenal way to start. That's how my sister started out, and now Mario games are pretty much the only games she plays, besides sports. So with that, thank you very much for watching. I probably won't re-review the rest of the New Super Mario Bros. Series, because they get kind of redundant after all this time, but hopefully this will suffice, and hope it'll keep you satisfied until the next side-scrolling Mario.